Hey there, and welcome to Secrets of the Ancients. If you love unraveling mysteries from the past and discovering stories that time almost forgot, you're in the right place. So don't forget to follow us for this video and all our future journeys into the unknown. And if you want to help us out, just hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and leave a comment below. Your support really means a lot to us. There's a ship drifting somewhere out in the ocean without a crew. The last time anyone saw it was over 50 years ago. Its story reminds people of the Flying Dutchman, the legendary ghost ship doomed to sail forever and bring disaster to whoever spots it. But unlike the Flying Dutchman, the SS Baichimo was very real. It was built in Hamburg for a German company and started out as a regular cargo ship in 1914, trading supplies between Hamburg and Sweden in the Baltic Sea. It had a powerful steam engine and a steel hull. A few years later, the ship was taken over by the British, and in the 1920s it was sold to a Canadian company for about $18,000, a huge amount of money back then. The new owner, the Hudson's Bay Company, used the ship actively for years, sending it on routes from Scotland to Siberia, Alaska, the Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. It even passed through the Panama Canal and the Suez Canal, usually carrying furs for trade. Sometimes it even transported passengers. The Baichimo completed 9 successful voyages before its luck ran out. Starting in the 1930s, the ship kept running into trouble with ice and storms. In October 1931, it got trapped in the ice. Some of the crew managed to escape to Alaska, but 15 of the 22 sailors stayed behind to try to save it. They had furs and other valuable cargo worth about $58,000 on board. The company sent supplies to help them survive the winter, and they set up camp near the ship, unloading some of the goods. But at the end of November, a huge blizzard hit the area, and when it was over, the Baichimo had vanished. At first the crew thought it had sunk, but soon after, a local reported seeing the ship about 45 miles away. That's when the Baichimo began its strange life as a wandering ghost ship. For years afterward, people claimed to spot it, usually off the coast of Alaska, all the way up until 1965. Travelers, gold prospectors, explorers, even treasure hunters all said they saw it. One man even managed to board it and tried to bring it back to port, but he got stuck for days because of bad weather. Others were luckier, managing to salvage a few things like furniture and even a whaling boat. Those who got close said the ship was badly damaged and missing its propeller. Even so, the SS Baichimo stayed afloat without a crew for at least 38 years, making it the longest sailing ghost ship in history. In 2006, Alaskan authorities launched a project to try to solve the mystery once and for all, to find out whether the ship still existed, either floating or sunk. But nothing turned up. The Baichimo remains one of roughly 4,000 ships that have disappeared off Alaska's coast. The story is often compared to the legend of the Flying Dutchman. That ship supposedly belonged to the Dutch East India Company, and its captain once pulled off the impossible, sailing from Holland to Indonesia in just 3 months. People said he was flying over the sea, and rumors spread that he had made a deal with dark forces. When the ship set sail back home, the captain and crew mysteriously vanished. Some say the ship tried to enter Cape of Good Hope during a violent storm and sank. Another version says the captain defied heaven itself, refusing to let the ship go down, and a terrifying figure appeared, cursing him and his crew to wander the seas forever. Over the centuries, sailors have claimed to see the Flying Dutchman. Even the Duke of York, who later became King of England, said he spotted it near Australia. Right after that sighting, the sailor who first reported it fell from the mast and died. These ghost ship encounters were reported well into the 20th century. Scientists today offer a more logical explanation, a mirage effect called fata morgana. On hot days when light passes through layers of air at different temperatures, it bends and twists, creating optical illusions. This can make distant ships look distorted, stretched, or even floating above the water. Sometimes they appear, disappear, and reappear again. Fata Morgana is especially common in polar regions, where flat sheets of ice create perfect conditions, but it can also happen over deserts and lakes. Ghost ship stories go back as far as Greek and Roman legends. One of the most famous real cases is the Mary Celeste, found in the Atlantic Ocean in 1872. The ship was fully stocked and in good condition, but the entire crew had vanished, leaving behind all their personal belongings. To this day, nobody knows what happened. Another famous ghost ship is the Lady Lovibond. According to legend, in the mid-1700s its captain, Simon Reed, had just gotten married and took his new bride on a celebratory voyage. ignoring the superstition that it was bad luck to bring a woman on board. His first mate, who was also in love with the bride, went mad with jealousy, attacked a crew member, and deliberately steered the ship straight into the deadly Goodwin Sands. Everyone died, and the ship is said to reappear as a phantom every 50 years. In modern times, many ghost ships aren't the stuff of legend at all. They're just abandoned vessels. Thousands of them drift in rivers, lakes, canals, and coastal waters. Some get lost in storms, others are left behind because upkeep is too expensive. Fiberglass boats in particular are nearly impossible to recycle, so when owners want to get rid of them, they sometimes just tie them to a dock and sneak away, push them out to sea, or even sink them. But abandoned boats can cause serious problems. In shallow waters, they damage coral reefs, mangroves, oyster beds, and wetlands. They can also crash into active ships unexpectedly. That's why ghost ships, both real and legendary, remain a haunting problem of the seas. And hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this journey, please remember to follow Secrets of the Ancients and stick around for more incredible stories. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. We really appreciate your support. On the west coast of Chile, even though the sea seemed fairly calm, Richard was still struggling. He hadn't gotten his sea legs yet, and his movements were awkward. The deck kept rocking up and down, and he just couldn't get used to it. Huge waves hit the Pilgrim from every direction as the ship closed in on Cape Horn. Richard looked ahead and saw these massive black thunderclouds in the distance. Jack laughed and said, "Welcome to the Horn," but the smile quickly faded from his face. He knew what was coming. The strong winds whipped through the sails as the crew scrambled to grab the ropes. Richard desperately tried to adjust the aft sails to match the shifting southern winds, while Jack gripped the wheel firmly, fully aware of how critical his role was. He knew that the swells would grow more dangerous the further south they went, and that it was vital not to let the Pilgrim get too close to the Horn. The darkness that had once been far away was now all around them. Sheets of rain and hail pounded the crew as Jack steered under the captain's orders. The temperature dropped sharply. He could barely keep the water out of his eyes as he turned the ship toward the port bow, just to give his face a brief break from the punishing wind. Off in the mist, he spotted the Horn, standing alone, shrouded in fog. It was a chilling sight. As the Pilgrim drew closer, the seas became shallower, the waves steeper, and far more dangerous for the wooden hull. Jack wasn't sure how much more the ship could take. Richard stayed at the rear sails, keeping watch on the waters and the drifting icebergs. He couldn't tell how big they were since most of their mass was hidden beneath the surface, but he knew to warn Jack if one came too close. Just one strike from an iceberg would be enough to finish the Pilgrim. And it wasn't just the icebergs. Rogue waves were common here, where the Southern Ocean slammed into the Pacific. These freak waves could tower over 100 feet high, enough to crush almost any ship. If the Pilgrim met one, it would be the end. The currents seemed to pull them toward the rocky shallows, as if the Horn itself were trying to drag them in. Jack strained at the wheel, muscles aching, forcing the ship away from danger as the captain shouted orders over the chaos. For a novice, it was overwhelming, but Jack, a hardened veteran, calmly interpreted every command, guiding the Pilgrim back on course. The captain ordered Richard below deck to check the hull. The Drake passage had battered them hard, and he feared the ship had taken damage. Richard hurried down just as another wave slammed the side, water sweeping across the deck. He barely grabbed a mast in time to stop himself from being washed overboard. Below, Richard found no structural damage, but the lower decks were already filling with water. Cups and trash floated around his feet. Even down here there was no escape from the sea. He stood frozen, listening to the roar outside, the constant pounding of waves against the hull, like a grim drumbeat marking the Pilgrim's slow countdown. Forcing himself back up top, he gripped the slippery railing and climbed carefully. The sounds of creaking ropes, sailors yelling, and the relentless crash of the storm filled the air. Jack was still at the wheel, fighting wind, waves, and now ice. For 9 days the crew battled the storm, the shifting winds, and every obstacle the sea threw at them. But at last, the Pilgrim broke through. As they left the storm behind, the crew steered north toward their final destination. When the sun broke through the dark clouds at last, it was the most comforting sight Richard had ever seen. Unfortunately, Richard had lost his food rations somewhere in the storm. At sea, if you lose your share, that's just tough luck. Thankfully, Jack was kind enough to split some of his. Meanwhile, on another ship crossing the Atlantic, a storm was brewing. At first it didn't seem too bad, but quickly, the waves grew massive, and it became clear the vessel couldn't survive. It began to sink. On board, there was only one lifeboat, big enough for just one person. The captain now faced a terrible decision. Who should be given the single chance to survive? Including the captain, there were 8 passengers left. Some looked kind, others suspicious, but appearances can be deceiving. The passengers were Alex, 28, a talented artist boasting about his first international exhibit. But what no one knew was that his shy twin brother had painted the masterpieces, while Alex took all the credit. Maria, 23, 8 months pregnant, spoiled, moody, and rude to the crew. She was traveling to her husband's home, though the child wasn't his, but his best friend's. Still, could they really abandon an unborn baby? Professor Marcus, 65, a leading researcher in gene therapy, on the verge of a breakthrough that could save millions. But his wife Judith had mysteriously disappeared 15 years ago, and whispers suggested he might know why. Dr. Anna, 34, a surgeon who had saved hundreds of lives in disasters. A brilliant doctor, but a failed mother, estranged from her 3 daughters who wanted nothing to do with her. Teresa, 78, a bitter widow whose family abandoned her. She was taking one last trip to visit her late husband's grave. Mark, a wild 7-year-old boy traveling alone, supposed to meet his parents on shore. With them too busy for him, he'd grown unruly. Who knew what kind of man he'd become one day? Alpha 3, an android built to assist on expeditions. Equipped with advanced AI, it could analyze crises and even steer the ship in emergencies. Emily, 30, stunning and manipulative, living off wealthy older men. She'd never worked a day in her life, traveling the world purely for pleasure. The captain, desperate, asked each of them one question: why should you be the one to survive? Alex claimed his art inspired people and showed them life's beauty. Maria argued for her unborn child, saying she carried the promise of a future. Marcus insisted his unfinished work could save countless lives. Dr. Anna reminded them her hands had already saved hundreds. Teresa pleaded for one last chance to see her husband's grave. Young Mark said simply he wanted to hug his parents again. Alpha 3 declared it was designed to help humanity and prevent future disasters. Emily argued her youth and beauty gave her potential worth. The captain was left torn, agonized by the choice. How could a single man decide who deserved to live and who must be left behind? Ben slammed his fists against the walls, trying to figure out how to judge the value of each passenger and what they could contribute. Alex, as a talented artist, could inspire thousands of people with his work. His art might have a real impact on society, but no one knows how far his ego might take him, or destroy him. And if Maria survives, it also means saving her unborn child. But as hopeful as that sounds, there's no guarantee this child will actually help society. What if the baby grows up to become a criminal genius instead? Marcus, on the other hand, is already producing valuable scientific research. His work could make a real difference. But he's not young anymore. What if he doesn't live long enough to finish it? Then there's Dr. Anna, a surgeon. She has already saved countless lives and will definitely keep saving more in the future. Her ability to provide immediate medical help in critical moments makes her one of the most valuable candidates for survival. She can literally save lives directly and regularly. At the same time, though, she's also a terrible mother, and that would definitely affect her daughters' lives. Teresa is living history, full of knowledge and experience. But sadly, her contribution to society is limited by her age. To put it simply, she's old and no one knows how much time she has left. Then there's another passenger. He has the potential for a long, productive life, but his direct contribution to society is uncertain for now. His survival would depend on possible future benefits, which are hard to measure. Alpha 3, the robot, can provide technical support and assistance, but as a machine, it doesn't really add to human well-being in a meaningful way. And then we have Emily. Aside from her beauty, her achievements are small, but because she only dates wealthy and influential people, she already has a lot of indirect influence on society. From a purely logical perspective, looking at who could bring the most benefit, saving Dr. Anna seems like the smartest choice. Her skills and knowledge could save countless lives in the future. That's the greatest good for the greatest number. But in the end, after hearing everyone's arguments and with time running out, the captain makes his decision. He chooses to save Emily. Why would he make such an unexpected choice? Well, the truth is that even though each passenger had strong arguments for why they should be saved, the captain was swayed by Emily's charm and beauty. Despite there being far more logical and humanitarian options, he gave in to his emotions and personal preferences. This little puzzle shows us that in real life, people often make choices based on feelings, sympathy, and personal connections, rather than logic or the greater good. Emotions and relationships can have a powerful impact on how we see situations and make decisions. For example, in hiring, managers often choose candidates they personally like or feel they have something in common with, even if other applicants have better skills or experience. This is known as the similarity effect. Now here's the big question for you. Which passenger would you save? Remember, there isn't really a right or wrong answer. Back in 1854, the SS Arctic, the fastest passenger ship of its time, set out to cross the Atlantic. As it sailed through the heavy fog, it slowly disappeared into the unknown. The Collins Line, an American shipping company founded in 1818, had only begun trading seriously across the Atlantic by 1835. Their steamships could make the journey from Liverpool to New York in just 10 days. That doesn't sound fast today, but back then, other ships needed weeks. With their wooden hulls and powerful steam engines, Collins Line ships quickly became the top choice for many prominent passengers. What could possibly go wrong with such an advanced vessel? It's the same kind of thinking people had about other ships later believed to be unsinkable. But as history shows, things didn't go as planned. Finally, thank you so much for listening and joining us on this journey through Secrets of the Ancients. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget